exponents. That means that that power is going to be a fraction. Okay? This is where it gets fun. So let's talk about this. So rational exponents, that just means that your exponent is a fraction. So I have b to the 1/2 power. Well, this is how this works. The number up top represents the power. So the number in the numerator represents the power. The number in the denominator represents the root. So this is the exact same thing as saying b to the first power to the second root, or the square root, which is the same thing as saying the square root of b. Okay? Top number, the numerator represents the power, denominator represents the root. Okay? So 16 to the 1/2 power. That's the same thing as saying the square root of 16. Because 16 to the first power is 16, and this is my root. 2 we call squared. So that looks like this, which equals
4.
4. Okay. What does the next one mean? What do you guys think the 5x to the 1/2 means?
Square root of 5x.
Where's the exponent?
The square root of x.
It's the square root of x, but what about the 5?
Square root of x times 5.
Yeah, so 5 times
Good job, Isaac.
the square root of x. Okay, so that's going to look like this. 5 times the square root of x. You don't even have to put a dot or anything in there. You just match the 5 right up to the radical. 5 root x. Can that be simplified? No. Okay. What about this one? What do you think? Kaden?
So it's like the cubed of it?
Yeah, so the third root or cubed root of 27. So what does that look like? How do I write that? Does anybody know? Has anyone seen anything like that before? Colton? Yeah, you make the same radical symbol, but you nestle a little 3 right there. That tells me that I'm looking for the cubed root, or the 4th root if it was a 4. And then I have to put the 27 in here. That means what number can you multiply by itself to equal 27?
3.
Yeah. So that's the same thing as saying the cubed root of, and I'm going to write it out, 3 times 3 times 3, because I'm saving these notes for the calendar, which equals 3. Okay? What the heck? What's this big number down here? 1,296 to the 1/4 power.
The 4th root of 1,296.
Yeah. 4th root of 1,296. So again, I'm going to make my radical symbol and I'm going to stick a little 4 over it. 1,296.
6.
6. How are you knowing that?
I looked it up on calculator.
You looked it up in a calculator. How do we do this in a calculator? What if I don't know this off the top of my head? How could I find the fraction power? Do you want to learn?
I'm pretty sure on the iPad one there's a button that you can push, and if they only have like the 2 and the 3, and then there's one that has a Y over the top of it, and then you just put in whatever number.
Okay. So depending on the type of calculator you have, let's talk about calculator functions really fast. So for your calculator, you either have a button that looks like this. You may have a button that looks like this called the caret, right? So if I wanted to find 1,296 to the 1/4 power, in my calculator I can push in 1, 2, 9, 6. If I use my caret function, I'm going to press the caret button. Does everybody see that? Caret, parenthesis 1 divided by 4, because that's how we make the fraction 1/4. And then hit equals. If I'm going to use this method with the x to the y power, I'm going to do 1,296 same thing, x to the y power, and then a parenthesis should automatically pop up for you. Do 1 divided by 4. So everybody try that and make sure that they can get it to work on their calculator. By the way, speaking of calculators, calculator number 11 and number 13 are missing. They are not down in the den. I had a bunch of calculators returned to me. If you guys are taking calculators out of this room, you need to sign them out. So I have 2 missing calculators. Be on the lookout for them. They are red. They will be spray painted red. So can everyone get this to work? You guys see how to do that? Feel good? Can I move on? How are we doing on time?
5:42.
Okay. All right. So sometimes, so we know that this represents the power, this represents the root. Sometimes we'll be given a number like this, 64 to the 3/2. So that means that I'm going to take the square root of 64 to the 3rd power. So in a calculator, I would do this, 64 caret function, parenthesis, 3 divided by 2. And what would I get? I can look. I mean, I have them worked out. Yeah, 512. Okay. What's this going to look like in a calculator? What buttons am I going to push? 256. Caret function. Parentheses. 5 divided by 4. And what'd you get, Jackson? 1024. Is someone confirming that? Is he good? That's what I got. What about this one? 27 raised to the 2/3 power. What's that going to look like?
27.
27, and then the caret function, and parentheses 2 divided by 3.
And?
I don't know.
You have no idea?
I
Okay. 9? Is it 9? Is that what everybody got? That's what Mahati and I got. Fabulous. So they look scary, but real easy to plug and chug in a calculator, right? Okay, let's look at this. What about exponential equations? This happens when there's a variable in the exponent. So the power property, remember, power property just lets us distribute that power, right? Well, for any real number, as long as b is greater than 0, and b doesn't equal 1, so these can't be zeros or ones right here. B can't be a 1, and the exponents can't be zeros if and only if x equals y. So what does that mean? Here we go. I'm just going to jump right down to here. So I have 5x equals 125. I have to figure out the value of x. So the first thing I have to do is I have to write 125 as a power of 5. Let's see. Well, 5 squared is 25, so it's not 5 squared. What's another way to write 125? What's 5 cubed? 125. So 125 is the same thing as 5 cubed. So really I have 5x equals 5 cubed, okay? When the base is the same, the value of the exponents are also the
Same.
That means that
X equals 3.
Equals 3. Okay? So the trick is going to be to take whatever the variable value, the exponent, like power is, that variable, whatever its base is, you're going to have to rewrite the other number as that. That's the goal for most of them. Sometimes they're a little tricky. So what about this one? 7 to the y power equals 2,401. And sometimes you're like, I know that I have to write it as a power of 7, but how do I even do that? How can you do that? Well, take 2401 and divide it by 7 in your calculator. What do you get?
343.
Take 343 and divide it by 7.
Be 49.
49. Take 49 and divide it by 7.
7.
So this is 7 to the 1. 7 by itself is 7 to the 1, 2, 3, 4 power. What do you think 7 to the 4th power is?
2401.
Is it 2,401? Did you check?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't know what it is, you can just start dividing by the base. Does that make sense? So I have 7y